Hi everyone and welcome to Equestrian. Before we start our video, I'd like to apologize for my voice today. It sounds the way it does because I've got a cold. Without further ado, let's start our video. There are some topics in the equestrian world that are seemingly obvious and necessary, but at the same time very much overlooked in the comments of instructors and trainers. These are the very areas we want to address first on our channel. Everyone has seemingly heard and knows all about the Half-Halt. If we were to ask any instructor or a trainer, of course they would say they talk about it very often because it is impossible to ride without half-halts. At the same time, anyone who has spent some time in the riding arena realizes that much more often we hear about adding leg, doing something with our reins, or adding other aids than about something as basic as the Half-Halt. It probably has a bit to do with the complicated translation and the definition of the Half-Halt. Here we'll try to explain all that theory or way which goes a little better with the biomechanics and positive riding. Our version of the Half-Halt is a warning, so it is a way of telling the horse, hey, I need you to stay focused and alert for a few seconds. At the very beginning of my horse's education, I tried to warn the horse about literally everything, an uneven surface, a puddle, a turn or a stop, or the fact that his body is out of balance. I warned them in many different ways, with my voice, body tension, riding aids, balance, everywhere and anytime, even in the stall, leading the horse or performing simple barn chores. This allows your horse to build trust in their wise little human who not only sees but feels. Otherwise, in the eyes of our beloved horse, we come off as a flawed individual. Here's an example. We don't want to allow our horse to trip, so we simply warn them about the uneven ground. If our horse then trips, he will do so on his own account, but after a warning from a wiser friend. In my view, this is how horses perceive the expression of love. From the day they were born, they learn that the ultimate expression of care on the part of their own mother is precisely to warn them of things more or less dangerous to their health. So a loving human being should then perform this function, right? Cool, now how do I do it when riding? As for me, variously. The whole secret is probably that the Half-Halt must fit the next command and the horse. So as per usual, we will put the horse first. Each horse has its own reaction time and attention span. The older and more trained the horse is, the longer this time is going to be, meaning we gain more time between such a warning and the actual command. With green horses and those trying to embrace the whole world around them, we have only a second or two. And here we meet an issue. The rider must perform the command in time before the horse becomes interested in something else. This means that between the Half-Halt and the command passes around a single second. That's why sometimes we need to perform several Half-Halts. And it's not that they don't work. They do work pretty well, only we are too slow. We'll try to demonstrate this. I often measure the attention span by observing the horse's ears. They usually show how long our time to react is. Try it for yourself. So let's go over it step by step. We can warn our horse using any part of our body or a combination of them. So your seat, the shoulder, the leg, or literally anything else. The horse will react with interest in what should happen next, so he will move his ear back towards his rider from the accurate side. Sometimes both ears if you use aids on both sides. This gives us an idea of how much time we have to perform our command before the horse becomes interested in something else. This also gives us insight on how little time we have to precisely add our aids to take the next step and how much we need to respect the attention our horse gives us. If the warning is too strong, the horse will literally half stop and sometimes completely stop. This depends not only on the timing of the Half-Halt and on how advanced our horse is, but also on the type of the Half-Halt. So let's start with the hand. This is generally a quick aid and gives a short time of engagement. Usually it connects with or contact with the horse's mouth. A Half-Halt performed with the leg gives us a little more time and engagement to perform the next command. Usually the strongest aid is the seat. Only sometimes we forget how to use it. After all, it's not about pressing the saddle or jumping in it. What we mean is to bring the horse's attention to the fact that we need his whole body to be engaged for a few seconds. We then need to be exactly above the horse's center of gravity, awaiting further movement. The easiest way is to use your imagination. I would like to bring up an example I overheard from a very experienced trainer. Imagine that you are a tree, so grow upwards, vertical to the sky, and put your roots as deep into the ground as possible at the same time. So we're going to stretch our spine vertically, which will help us stabilize our body weight above our horse's center of gravity and sit in perfect balance. Half-halts can certainly help you pass by scary things. If there's something that may turn out to be scary, let the half-halt be a way of saying, "Hey buddy, there's something red over there, but we don't need to worry about it because we're going to do the circle and then trot the poles." Rather than, "Hey buddy, there's something red over there and I think you're going to run away because it's going to eat you for sure." Sometimes we perform these warnings completely involuntarily, and often such tension in us ends up scaring the horse instead of calming him down. It all depends on what is in our mind. Before each turn and command, we also perform a warning, and it is directed at what we are going to do. That is different when we want to halt and different when we want to canter. Most riders wonder why their horse won't follow their commands. That is, why can't I pick up canter or halt? Why doesn't it work for me the first try? Precisely because the horse perceives the first command as a half-halt, then the second command is sometimes perceived as an actual command, and sometimes the horse will start to wonder if his rider knows what they are doing, and only the third command works. It sounds like a communication problem, and that's exactly what it is. If you don't know how to approach this, I started with turns. The horse reacts much better if he is sure he is going to turn and knows how sharp the turn needs to be. This is definitely a more pleasant situation for both the animal and the rider than when you are running straight to the end of the riding arena and the horse himself has to decide when to disobey your aids and turn. No one has the ability to read minds, and although horses are very close to it, the ability has not yet been possessed. As our horse and their training progresses or communication develops, we come to the kind of a warning that stops our horse's thoughts and actions for a fraction of a second, waiting for the next aid or a suggestion to move. In our perception, willingness and trust are necessary for this, which we simply have to build. With horses that are very attentive and focused on the rider's aids, we may notice that the period of time when at least one of the horse's ears is directed at the rider lengthens. Sometimes you can see your horse's ear is back for entire competition tests or rounds, lasting several minutes each. We should be able to appreciate this as evidence of a commitment on the horse's part, while at the same time being willing to use its body as the rider wishes. It is a sign of trust. The worst thing a rider can do is to ignore such obedience and leave it without a warning or praise. Of course, like any other aid, the action of a half-halt can also be strengthened or weakened. Accidental leg aids, senseless movement of the reins, loss of balance, or accidental weight shifts cause the horse to stop responding to these aids and start paying more attention to signals coming from the environment rather than from the rider. In addition, the horse's energy and attention given to us during the half-halt should find an exit. Therefore, performing unconscious half-halts often leads to an unplanned and uncontrolled exit of energy, especially if we don't offer something reasonable to release that energy gathered during the half-halt. If we want to have an attentive horse that reads signals and follows commands, we also have a responsibility to be an attentive rider and receive information from the horse. I personally see the rider as not only a transmitter of signals, but also a receiver and a reader. Communication has to work both ways. If we don't prepare the horse for the next movement, it will always be wrong and will require corrections in the first few steps. Preparing with a half-halt not only gives us a cool and correct first step of a turn, canter, trot, or whatever comes to mind, It also gives us the lack of need for corrections in the next steps. Not only can we maintain a proper contact and lightness, we can reward the horse for following our command. If we don't prepare our next movement with a half-halt and we need to make a few corrections, it will always be fairly okay. But it's as if a toddler drew you a portrait and you said, color a little more here draw an extra line, and it will be nice. Seemingly cool, and yet it's not the same as saying, wow, that's such a good drawing, you did great. As per usual, we have prepared a little pro tip for you guys. Do not forget about the warnings, that is the half-halts, while trail riding. That way you come out as a trustworthy and wise guide with whom the horse doesn't have to be afraid of anything. I mostly focus on changes in ground texture and pay little attention to spooky things. A step here and now is more important than a cow standing 50 meters away. This way I get a far less spooky and more obedient horse. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to click the subscribe button and give us a thumbs up if you liked the video. If you guys have any questions, leave us a comment down below or contact us at bioequestrian@gmail.com.